There it goes. Hey there, folks. Welcome to yesterday's news for October 24th, 2018. So I'm going to talk about several different stories today. First two I'm going to talk about kind of together, and that is, while they're very different stories, they both qualify as probably left-wing political stunts. So the first story is all the non-functioning pipe bombs that were sent to various Democrats and CNN. It took a while. The initial reporting was all pointing towards, it's Trump supporters, they're violent, it must be the Proud Boys or something. And then as the day progressed, and it's like, well, wait a second, none of them went off? Like, not a single one out of, I think one story said that there were 6 total sent. None of them went off. And maybe this is a hoax. So they did start finally reporting that it may potentially be a hoax, even though they still went on a giant tirade about how terrible Republicans are, while trying to claim that they were a legitimate news outlet and not a propaganda organization. But anyways, so this, again, because none of them went off, and Trump supporters are winning. Like, we're winning. Why would we go blow stuff up right now? Doesn't really make sense. It makes a lot more sense as a political stunt, somebody trying to smear the other side, which I'm sure some of the left-wing violence could probably be that as well. But in this case, it does appear that this is it smells a lot more like a political stunt than an actual act of terrorism, or attempted act of terrorism, as the case may be. And the other story is this massive caravan of undocumented people making their way up from Honduras. I think it was Honduras. Probably Honduras. Yeah, I could be wrong. Somewhere down in Central America. And that, when I initially heard that story, this doesn't smell right. Thousands of people don't just all of a sudden decide to get up and walk thousands of miles to America just all at the same time for no reason. And desperate, starving people fleeing oppression and seeking asylum don't necessarily have the resources to mount a multi-thousand-mile trek across the desert on foot. There are more efficient ways to migrate, and there are also closer, safe places than Texas. So the idea that this is just, legitimate people seeking asylum doesn't hold water, in my opinion. And it smells very much like somebody is funding this thing with political motives. Because again, the idea that all these people just had all the resources to do this all at the same time is not very likely. So somebody's organizing it, and probably somebody's funding it and supplying them with food, water, etc. I heard some people suggesting that there's also transportation involved, that they're not actually making the journey on foot, but that's out in the internet, social media sphere, so who knows if it's accurate. But as reported by The Blaze today, linked down in the description to their video, according to a personal contact within the intelligence community, who is quoting, I believe it was the Honduran president, but some official in Honduras, they are suggesting, the Honduran government is suggesting, that the funding for this little stunt is coming out of Venezuela and Cuba. So, which I suppose is better than coming out of the Democrat Party, which was my first guess. So, yeah, it is what it smells like. It's a political stunt. Now, why would Venezuela and Cuba do this now? I don't know. I could see them being interested in hurting the image of our president and our current administration, but not really sure what their motive is, why they would pull this stunt now, unless they are colluding with the Democrat Party. Because I can see Democrat operatives thinking this was a good idea. They're wrong. It's going to backfire horribly, but I could see them thinking it was a good idea. So we'll see how this shakes out. If it turns out that this is being organized from within the U.S., then that is a pretty serious issue, because this could be construed as an invasion force, and organizing that as an American citizen could be easily construed as treason. So that could be a very serious issue if that is in fact what's going on. So we'll see how that develops. And as far as what to do about that, I think obviously we can't just let them in, because that is an unsustainable precedent right there. Hopefully nobody gets shot on TV, or hopefully maybe Mexico steps up and decides to do something about it and not just let them walk through. But we'll see what the administration decides to do, how they decide to handle it. I have no reason to think that they'll just let these people in, because that would just be a really bad idea. So yeah, keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens. I will probably continue to comment on it as it develops, but right now it looks like a massive political stunt that will inevitably backfire, because nobody wants this to happen. Nobody wants thousands of people to just march across our border without a plan, without a place to go, without anything. So yeah. All right, and the other story that I want to talk about today is a good guy with a gun story. So in Kentucky somewhere, I don't remember the city, there was an attempted mass shooting, a quasi-attempted mass shooting. There were 2 casualties, so partially successful mass shooting in a Kroger, I believe it was. And this story was initially trending on the front page on Bing. It was like the second story or something, and on the list. And the initial reports were just that, there was a mass shooting in a Kroger in Kentucky, and then a little later the details came out that, at some point the suspect exchanged gunfire with somebody else in the parking lot. And a little while later, the detail came out that, that person in the parking lot was in fact an armed civilian with a concealed carry permit who was intervening to stop the mass shooting, which was still in progress. And the shooter actually apparently tried to plead with the civilian defender on racial grounds, trying to say that he shouldn't shoot him because he's white. That didn't work. and the good guy with the gun kept shooting, and the bad guy with the gun ran away and was eventually apprehended by police. The funny thing is that as soon as that last little bit, that the person who halted the shooting was in fact an armed civilian with a concealed carry permit, as soon as that detail made it to the story, this incident dropped off the trending list and disappeared. And it still stayed in the suggestions, and for me, because I always click on gun-related stories, but it immediately disappeared from the main algorithm trending list. So the first takeaway is, yes, in fact, concealed carry works. So go get your carry permit, assuming you are of sound mind and good moral character. And it might be you next time that stops a mass shooting. It happens not every day, mass shootings, but statistically speaking, thousands of times a day, crimes are stopped by civilians with concealed carry permits. So the next one could be you, and it might not be your life that you save. So get a carry permit. It's a good idea. The other takeaway from this is to understand that the narrative is very important to the purveyors of news and information. And when Facebook talks about we're going to purge misleading news sources from our ranks, what they really mean is we're going to get rid of anything that feeds an alternative narrative. And based on what the lists that I've seen of who was purged and is being purged and who is continuously being shadow banned, etc., it has more to do with narrative than accuracy. And one thing to remember is that even when it is an impersonal algorithm doing the censoring, that algorithm is programmed and managed by a person. And while these are adaptive algorithms, so they're not actually, they're sort of self-programming. It's sort of an evolution-based process that they're self-adapting algorithms, and but the people who are managing the process by which the AI builds its algorithm, they have biases, and those biases inevitably end up being reflected in the algorithm. And so you see things like this where, concealed carry was involved, suddenly it's not a trending story anymore. So keep that in mind. Understand that the filters on what you see may not align with your expectations and may not align with reality. And it's good to maintain a reasonable grain of salt on your analysis of what is and is not important in the news. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I ran a little bit long, and if you enjoyed this content, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.